Wish Tree, Chapter 38. As for me, my reputation grew. Hadn't Maeve's wish come true in the heart of a wish tree? Didn't that mean anything was possible? Of course, as Squibbles often reminded me, I'd had nothing to do with it. This isn't a fairy tale, Red, he would say. But people are full of longings, and decade after decade, the hopes kept coming. A blessing and a burden it has been, all those wishes, all those years. But everyone needs to hope. Chapter 39. At long last, I stopped talking. Once the words had spilled out, it was like trying to stop the wind. In the silence that followed, I felt as if the whole world was holding its breath. I'd broken the rule. Stefan and Samar still stared open-mouthed at me. They looked as rooted to the ground as I was. Neither had uttered a sound while I told my story. The front door to Stefan's house opened. "Stefan!" called his father. "What are you doing, young man?" Stefan leapt to his feet. Here I come, Dad, Samar?" "Night, Stefan," she said. Stefan dashed toward the porch, but stopped halfway. He spun around to look at me. "Thanks," he said in a quizzical voice, using the same tone he might have used if Bongo had just made him pancakes. The door slammed behind him. Samar stood, holding her blanket to her chest. "I know I must be dreaming," she said. She headed to her own porch and eased open the door. "I just wish," she added with a smile, "that I didn't have to wake up." Chapter 40. Almost instantly, I regretted what I'd done. I'd broken the rule. The biggie. I'd deliberately spoken to people. And not just a few words, I'd spoken a river of words. It wasn't like that frog in the mailbox. I hadn't broken the rule accidentally. I'd broken the rule because I'd wanted something. I wanted to matter. I wanted to do something meaningful before I died. I'd done it for myself. After the shock babies and their equally shocked parents were safely ensconced in their dens, I admitted my feelings to Bongo. I'd waited for her to yell at me. Bongo is good at yelling. Extremely good. You might even say she has a gift. "Why did I do it, Bongo?" I murmured. "Why?" She flew to home plate. She stroked my rough bark with her sleek head. "You did it, my wise old tree, because you had a story to tell." "It was foolish," I said. "I'm not supposed to be foolish." "Not so foolish," Bongo said. "Just hopeful. And everyone needs to hope, Red. Even wise old trees." Chapter 41. Morning emerged slowly, heavy with clouds. A light rain had fallen just before dawn, soothing my leaves, if not my mood. Oddly, the ground felt saturated. Spring was always muddy, of course, but this was unusual. It would make for a messy wishing day tomorrow. An early rising old gentleman with a bamboo cane approached. He paused to attach a small piece of blue paper to my lowest branch, using a bit of twine. He didn't say his wish aloud, so I couldn't tell what it was. But he had a satisfied smile as he stepped carefully through the soggy grass. No doubt I'd be seeing more wishes today. Many people came early to grab an easy-to-reach spot. This would probably be my last wishing day. How could it be that my first one, that long ago day with Maeve, still seemed as fresh in my heart as my conversation with Stefan and Samar from the previous night? A car slowed to a crawl near the curb. I saw an arm, a blur, and then splat, something hit my trunk. Splat, splat, 2 more times, and the car roared off with a screech of tires. Bongo was the first to report the damage. "Raw egg," she said. "I'm assuming that didn't hurt." "Didn't feel anything," I said. Fresh baked bread, Harry Spiders, and Big U ventured out to inspect the situation. Big U slipped under the police tape and licked one of the yolks sliding down my trunk. She murmured. "Raw, just the way I like them." "Hey, Big, share the wealth," Harry Spider snapped as she and Fresh joined her. Agnes watched from her perch. "I'd much prefer a squirming mouse pup," she said. "It's all yours, ladies." "What a nice surprise," Big U said between slurps. "This is not nice," Bongo said. "This is people at their worst." "Still," said Harry Spiders, licking her paws, "it'd be a shame to let a perfectly good egg goo go to waste. One creature's nastiness is another creature's nibble." Big U gave a satisfied burp, and the animals scampered back to their homes. The door to Stefan's house opened, and he walked over to me, saw the eggshells scattered like puzzle pieces, and scowled. Samar was next, a backpack slung over her shoulder and books clutched to her chest. She leapt over a muddy puddle and joined Stefan. Jerks, he muttered, gesturing toward the egg remains. Sorry, Samar. But Samar held up her hand. Stefan, she said in a low voice. Last night. Stefan nodded ever so slightly, his eyes locked on me. Last night, he repeated, as if they were speaking in code. The tree. The tree. You heard what I said? Samar asked. I did. Samar looked right at Stefan. You heard the tree? I heard the tree, he answered. Samar gave a little nod. So it was maybe a trick. Someone playing a joke on us? Or maybe we are both sleepwalking at the same moment, Stefan suggested. He nodded as if trying to convince himself. Yeah, sleepwalking. Have you ever sleptwalked before? No, but there's a first for everything, Samar responded. They stood there, looking at me expectantly, willing me to speak. At least that's how it felt. I stayed silent. I'd said my piece, and I regretted it. Stefan, Samar said softly, whatever happens, we can't tell a soul about this. Deal? Deal. Ever. Ever. Samar sighed. People would say we were crazy. And they'd probably be right, said Stefan. Samar jutted her chin at me. Tree, do you have anything to add? I didn't say a word. Samar and Stefan shared a smile. Figured it was worth a shot, she said. They headed off to school together. Stefan's father came out onto the porch. He was holding a cup of coffee. He caught sight of Stefan and Samar and frowned. A moment later, Samar's mother stepped out of the blue house, her keys jangling, a briefcase over her shoulder. She followed her neighbor's gaze. Both parents watched in silence until Stefan and Samar, walking side by side, disappeared from view. Chapter 42. I didn't have much time to mull over my mistake. We had a steady stream of visitors as the hours passed. Early wishmakers came throughout the day. A little girl who wanted 20 hamsters. The grocer down the street hoping for a summer of sweet peaches. The usual. The local reporter returned. She peeked at some of the new wishes hanging from my branches and took a photo of the broken eggshells on my trunk. Sandy and Max came to remove the police tape surrounding me. Francesca joined them. Today she had Lewis and Clark on thin leather leashes. Each cat was wearing an embarrassingly sparkly harness. Francesca discussed the broken eggs with Sandy and Max, while Lewis and Clark wove around her legs. I've got a tree cutter coming out later to give me an estimate, Francesca said. So you're definitely cutting it down, Sandy asked, in what I like to think was a disappointed voice. Yep, no question. See that? All that water in the yard? Francesca pointed at the soggy lawn. Plumber told me this tree is plugging up some of the pipes. Least bit of rain and yarn turns into a giant mud puddle. Still, people are going to be sorry to see it go, Max said. He reached for Clark's leash and tried to unwrap Francesca. I know, it's a good old tree, but sentiment doesn't pay the plumber. Sandy grabbed Lewis while Francesca attempted to unknot herself from the leashes. What about the animals and the birds that live in the tree? She asked. Ah, that's where I'm using the old noggin, Francesca said. Every year the opossums and owls and such vacate the premises on wishing day. Strangest things. It's like they know what's coming. She hopped over the web of leashes. Suppose they don't like being disturbed. In any case, I'm hoping the cutters will come late tomorrow afternoon. Most of the wishing will be done by then. What will you do with all the wishes? Sandy asked. Put 'em in the trash when no one's looking. That's what I do every year. Whole thing's nonsense anyways. Max and Sandy looked at me sympathetically. I know. I don't have a sentimental bone in my body. Francesca paused to address the cats, who were yanking her in opposite directions. If dogs can do this, why is it such a challenge for you two? She turned her attention back to the police. But it's time, more than time. Well, we're going to swing by tomorrow. Keep an eye on things. No lead on the person who carved that word. But with the eggs and people just generally riled and the cut down, Sandy shrugged. Couldn't hurt to have us keep an eye on things. Thanks, Francesca said. Not necessary, but I appreciate it. Lewis and Clark caught a glimpse of Bongo and lunged for my trunk. Whoa, you crazy felines, Francesca cried, reining them in. They hissed at Bongo. She spread her wings menacingly and let out her most ferocious caw. Lewis and Clark retreated for the safety of Francesca's arms. Once again, she was a tangled knot of leashes and cats. Sandy smiled. Maybe leave the cats home tomorrow, Francesca. Chapter 43. That afternoon, I met my executioners. Not having teeth, I've never really understood the fear people seem to have of dentists. I've overheard conversations where the words root canal and cavity were used. But in tree world, those have different meanings. After seeing the tree cutters and their equipment, I understood. When a truck carrying powerful chainsaws along with something ominously called a stump grinder shows up, well, you know you're in trouble. Mind you, an arborist is a great friend to trees. We need our limbs trimmed just the way you need to cut your fingernails and hair, although for us it's only once or twice a year, and it's called pruning. I always feel especially elegant after a good pruning. But pruning is usually done with special shears that look like a giant scissors or with a small saw on a long pole. Stump grinders are generally not part of the plan. It didn't help when the three men wearing orange hard hats went to Francesca's door and announced they were from Timber Terminator's Tree Service. I'm going to make a deposit on those silly hats, Bongo muttered. No, Bongo, I said, although the idea was tempting. Let's wait and see what's what. Maybe they're just here for some pruning. You really are an optimist, he replied. Francesca walked the man over, this time without Lewis and Clark, and they discussed costs and timing. That's right, they talked about cutting me down, even though they enjoyed the shade for my lovely limbs. Talk about insensitive. One of the men, he introduced himself as Dave, climbed a ladder to inspect my hollows. Agnes, Harry Spiders, and Big U eyed him warily, ready to defend their babies. You've got some critters here, ma'am, he reported. Yes, yes, I know, Francesca said. Every year like clockwork. Bongo flew up to a spot near Agnes. Just one deposit, she said under her breath, that's all I'm saying. Situation like this, and we generally advise cutting in late fall, less likely to disturb any nests. I've got that covered, Francesca nodded, hands on hips. Animals and birds hightail it out of here every May 1st. Wishing Day, you know. Dave scratched his stubby chin. Wishing Day? People make wishes, put them on the trees. Animals and birds don't like all the noise. If you could do this tomorrow afternoon, the timing would be perfect. You work on Saturdays? Sure do, Dave shook his head. Wishing Day, he muttered. Now I've heard everything. Francesca nodded. She patted my trunk. Yeah, craziness. Can't believe I've put up with it as long as I have. And that's the end of today's reading. Please go on to Schoology to answer the discussion post. Thank you.